Recording on Tuesday, May 20th, 2025 at 12:04 p.m. Eastern Time, one day before Dale's 62nd birthday. So you all better leave a comment on the video. Go to the link in the description. Go to Dale's Instagram. Go wish the man a happy birthday. He could still kill all of you. He killed John and I. He really could kill everyone at 62. And that's why I love Dale. And obviously John Cullen, who's been on here. I was just counting before, a minimum of 20. I do see some other people have uploaded these episodes to their Rumble channels, which I did not realize was happening. They are taking views out of me. I'm going to make a note of that and fuck them up at a different time. But um, you were on last even a week ago with EM talking about the Vegas shooting. Before that was with Butler and Dale, and you Clay and I have done one or two shows I think on Butler. We
Right.
have done I think two shows with Dale before about both Butler and Vegas. And I mean, I'm just searching through just on Rumble for everyone else. You can just search TPC Cullen, Cullen, long COVID, the next pandemic, the egg shortage, Fauci's involvement, CIA visit. You were on here with Dr. Scott Jensen. We've talked just about everything, with everything, and about everything. But this one in particular, we've talked about before, and I know Dale's interested in it, and I love it because it's not as well known, but it's kind of I think it was the first time you and I spoke. We were talking about how the pandemic and the vaccine was actually for a different pandemic. And then towards the end, you were like, after a wild episode, you were like, now that's the rational explanation. And I was like, what? And you're like, I was like, I thought this was the crazy. You're like, the crazy explanation, you just showed like an impact. You're like, it was an asteroid. We'll do that next time. I was like, Jesus Christ. So for everybody listening, go in the description. Please go follow both of their socials. Dale's not on Twitter, but you can go to his Instagram, his performance coaching, all that good shit. And for John, you can go in, you can find his YouTube, his Twitter, his Substack, or not his Substack, his Patreon, his Subscribe Star, all that shit. But I'm now going to shut up. And John, you take it in any direction you want.
Well, I think Dale was curious about the asteroid twist, right? I mean, there was this asteroid twist to the COVID story. And I think Dale might have said something to Tommy and said, next time we get together with John, can we talk about this asteroid aspect
Yeah.
of the story? So it's kind of crazy, man. I mean, I don't know what to tell you other than, um, we never really got into COVID. Everything you and I have been talking about has been kind of ballistic oriented, right? Shootings and, cover ups of shootings and stuff like that. So the COVID thing is kind of a weird story that leads us to the asteroid thing. So COVID starts out, and I'm doing a podcast as COVID. Everybody becomes aware of COVID. I'm in the midst of doing a weekly podcast. So Tommy does like 20 podcasts a week, right? I was doing one, right? So I was doing a Friday night podcast once a week, kind of like the HBO schedule, right? One show a week. And I'm doing it with Jason Goodman, and he runs a thing called Crowdsource the Truth with a bunch of other investigative journalists, right? So he's got a show, every couple nights he's got a show with different guys, and I'm one of the guys. I'm the Friday night guy. And we're doing a show mostly focusing on the Vegas shooting. And as COVID starts hitting, he says to me, he's like, I'm not buying the narrative, man. I think there's something more here. And he said, he like implores me. He says, dig into this a little bit. See if you can find something for next week's show. See if, there's something if we peel the onion. And man, oh man, it got crazy. So I go and start looking at this Johns Hopkins dashboard. All right. So they've got this map of the pandemic. And I go searching for the thing. It's what you see on television, right? Everybody's showing you this thing on TV, and you're looking at the map on television. Let me see if I can share this, Tommy. Do I have sharing rights? Yeah, I think I do.
Yeah.
Right? All right. So where do you see this, Dale? You're gonna flip. All right. So this is the Johns Hopkins dashboard. And this is, let me see if I can grab the date here. June 17th of 2020. June. Like, 5, 6 months into the pandemic. And Hong Kong's got 4 dead. And this is Johns Hopkins. I'm like, huh? Now, I saw this in March, so I've got some earlier screenshots from March where I'm looking at this thing, but this was an interesting one because this is June. So March, April, May, June, they still don't have 10 people dead in Hong Kong? Huh? And there's not 5,000 dead in all of China? That's the number in the upper right-hand corner, the 4638. And so I'm looking at this and I'm like, what the hell's going on here? Now, when I first saw this thing in March, the irony was back in the 1980s, I was working at Oracle. And building that mapping system was one of the first projects I worked on. So I see the map, and it's like, are you kidding me? This is like this is software from 35 years ago that, I helped build this. I led the team at Oracle that helped the company that built it make it work. So I took one look at it, and I'm like, what do you mean there's not 10 people dead in Hong Kong? And sure enough, there's not 10 people dead in Shanghai. And there's not 10 dead in Beijing. And I'm like, wow, what the hell is going on here? And so then, when you see this, man, this is kind of crazy. So your buddies in Langley are so good. I don't think people understand how good these guys are. They're ridiculously good. Like, wait, watch this. All right, this is the map that they kept putting on television. Okay? Looks horrible. Oh my God. It's contagion. Somebody called Dustin Hoffman. Where's the monkeys? Get in the balloon suit. This is a disaster. Except there's only 21 people dead in Japan. And there's not 10 dead in Hong Kong, and there's not 10 dead in Shanghai, and there's not 10 dead in Beijing. So why is the map so red? That's not good software design. The map is not supposed to be this red. Okay? So I'm looking at this thing, and I'm like zooming in on stuff. I'm clicking on Hong Kong. I'm clicking on Shanghai. I'm clicking on Beijing. And I got 4 dead, 7 dead, 9 dead. I'm like, well, who the hell colored this thing red? Ho, ho, ho. Your old buddies, guys you used to work with, thought that, nobody's really going to click on the cities, right?
Johnny, you just muted yourself.
Yep. So Anderson Cooper, he didn't click on Hong Kong. Sean Hannity didn't click on Shanghai. David Meir was too busy doing his hair, looking gorgeous, to check Vietnam. Had nobody dead, 0. 100 million people in Vietnam, right? More people than Germany, more people than the UK. Nobody's dead, 0. And they share a border with China. So I'm looking at that and kind of scratching my head like I'm in the Twilight Zone. Like, nobody's looking at Hong Kong? How does Anderson Cooper not check Hong Kong? What? And so I start making videos saying, Dr. Fauci, is this true? Is it true that there's not 10 dead in Hong Kong or Shanghai or Beijing? And I start publishing those videos in March. And next thing you know, I'm introduced to Laura Ingraham. Out of the blue. By some guy in Geneva, Switzerland. Introduces me to Laura Ingraham. I don't know if you know that Laura Ingraham used to live in St. Petersburg and adopted 2 Russian children. Speaks Russian. Okay? Privyet. So, she and I end up on Skype together talking about COVID stuff. Now, in retrospect, because I was ruining the cover-up. I'm out there going, but Hong Kong doesn't have 10 dead, and I built the map. And they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. We can't grease this guy. We can't find him that easily. If we could, we probably would. And I'm out there telling her, there's not 10 people dead in Hong Kong, Shanghai, and Beijing, and I built the map. So she rope-a-dopes me. She and I are emailing 8, 10 times a day. She's emailing me from the set of the show. This is Laura Ingraham on Fox News. Right? I don't know when the last time you saw Fox News was. It may be 9 years ago. You don't even know who the hell I'm talking about. Blonde hair, blue eyes, 6'1", right? She used to be the judicial assistant to Clarence Thomas. Okay. Kayleigh McEnany used to be a judicial assistant. I think that this is the career track coming out of Langley. So they get these JDs coming out of Harvard, Princeton, and Yale, and Stanford. They do their Langley stuff on them. And then they get them jobs working for Supreme Court justices and working at the White House. And next thing you know, they're on Fox News because they used to be the press secretary. I mean, being press secretary, if you're, actually with the agency, you get to say what we want everybody to hear, and then you get a job at Fox News for 10, 12 million a year. I've said this before. If anybody ever told me that, you join the agency and within 10 years, you're going to be on TV making 10, 12 million a year, 20 million a year, I might have joined, right? It's hard for me to poke anything in Sean Hannity's eye. You see the houses he's been buying and selling?
Fucking loaded.
Dude, and they're paying Laura Ingraham 20, 25 million a year now. Right? So it's big, big money. So she and I are emailing back and forth, COVID, Dr. Fauci, yada, yada. And we have a guest on our podcast. So I'm doing the podcast right now. We have a guest. The guest comes on. His name is Shepard Ambellis. He used to run a thing called IntelliHub. It was pretty popular. He still runs it, but he got squashed. He comes on and said, guys, I kind of had a hunch that if there was an extinction level event, like an asteroid thing, that they would use a virus to cover it up, to keep everybody indoors and stuff. I was like, all right, is there any evidence of something weird? And he starts showing us videos of troop movements or like military equipment movement. It turns out it was the National Guard, but nobody knew of it yet. It turns out they were building field hospitals. And he's got video of like stuff on train tracks that's already moving. And we're like, what the hell's all this? Because they hadn't told us they were building the field hospitals yet. Shep breaks the story, comes on the show, like literally showing us stuff on his phone that somebody sent them from somewhere in Texas where trains are going by. And we're like, what the hell is going on here? There's not 10 dead in Hong Kong. There's not 10 dead in Shanghai. They're locking everybody down. The president's declaring a national emergency. What in the world is going on? This isn't adding up. And so the other thing that's kind of the key moment, March 13th, President Trump declares a national emergency. The whole country, all 50 states. He puts the Stafford Act and the Wartime Manufacturing Act, and it's like, what the hell is going on? There's not 10 people dead in Hong Kong. Why are you guys freaking out? If you told me, yeah, we have this outbreak in Wuhan and we've already got 22,000 dead in Hong Kong, 30,000 dead in Shanghai, all right, and there was already 1,800 people dead in Vietnam and Ho Chi Minh and Saigon, but there's none of that. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Did you see the video where like Trump comes out of the White House and he's got the whole crew with him filing out, and he comes to the podium. He says, a beautiful day in the Rose Garden. We're going to put the full force of the U.S. government behind this. Is March 13th. No one is dead in New York. No one is dead in Florida. No one is dead in Texas. There's one guy dead in California. But there's not 10 dead in Hong Kong. And it's like, if it's coming out of China, I'd be panicking when you told me it's really devastating Hong Kong, Shanghai, Beijing, okay. But if there's 4 dead in Hong Kong and 7 in Beijing, and, why are you guys freaking out here? This is March 13th. 2 days earlier, the WHO declares a global pandemic. And again, I'm looking at the data. I'm looking at the map. I'm like, but where? Oh, Wuhan. Okay, I see you got a big thing going on in Wuhan. I get it. Okay, big outbreak in Wuhan. Where else? Why are you declaring a global pandemic? Like a bunch of people dead in Korea? Japan? No. What the hell is going on? So I figured, all right, this is Shepard Ambellis. He's like Hertz would be Alex Jones. Shepard Ambellis is like Avis, right? So he's like the number, so you got Alex Jones and you got Shepard Ambellis. So he's one notch below. IntelliHub, though, was a big thing. And so I'm like, look, the guy's good. He's showing us this troop movement looking stuff. I'm going to dig into this. And I start scratching and I start digging. And what I found was mind-blowing. Unbelievable. And then I shared this with Tommy. And Tommy said, they closed the doors to Cheyenne Mountain.
For the first time, I don't think they even fully sealed them on 9/11. I could be wrong. I know that Will Arkin, former Army Intel guy, is an author, wrote a ton of great books. His book, The Generals Have No Clothes, he wrapped it up as COVID was starting, so he put in like an extra chapter. And I believe it was because to Cheyenne Mountain was built in the 50s. I don't even know if it was finished for Cuban Missile Crisis. I don't think they closed the doors on 9/11. I think the last time they closed them, I don't know, might have been the Kennedy assassination, or it might have been like the Reagan assassination attempt. But they didn't close them because that's like the final hermetically sealed. It's like, oh, we're hitting reset on humanity. They closed them in, I think, March 2020 because of COVID,
That's
which
consistent.
is which is fucked.
So I'm going to show you guys the evidence. I'm going to show you the evidence of kind of what was happening. Excuse me. What was happening that week? So it turns out that week, the week that the WHO declares a global pandemic, and then 2 days later, Trump declares a national emergency in all 50 states, that was Hell Week. That was the week that we learned what the hell was going on, apparently, because that's the week that everything changed. So let me show you a video clip. Somebody put this together, and I don't think they understood what they were documenting. And this is a video of March 10th to March 11th. And effectively, everything changes overnight. And then I'm going to show you what I believe happened. What did they show the president on March the 10th that everything changes the next day? All right, so let's start with this little video clip. Let me run this, Tommy. And I think everybody's going to get a kick out of this one. Hang on. So this is the March 10th to March 11th transition from it's no big deal to Stafford Act. Okay, it's like, well, how the hell did all this go down? All right, so here we go. Let me launch this, Tommy, and we'll share this. Here we go.
I had a great conversation last night with President Xi.
I really believe they are going to have it under control fairly soon. In April, supposedly, it dies with the hotter weather.
The Centers for Disease Control says the coronavirus is going to spread in the United States, but the White House today said that it's contained.
Our country couldn't accept or would not accept the implications of what we were finding.
One person with coronavirus in King County, Washington State, has died.
9 Americans now have died.
11 people have died from coronavirus. Tonight, the first containment zone here in America within a 1-mile radius in the New York suburb of New Rochelle.
And then suddenly here it was in our own community. Here's what's making headlines on this March 11th.
Good morning on this Wednesday, March 11th.
Wednesday, March 11th.
Hope you guys are exhaling, taking a minute for yourselves in the midst of all the chaos and confusion.
I just looked at my notes from that day, and it was a most unusual day. I was testifying before the House Energy and Commerce Oversight and Reform hearing, and during that hearing, I said,
we will see more cases, and things will get worse than they are right now. How much worse we'll get will depend on our ability to do two things: to contain the influx in people who are infected coming from the outside, and the ability to contain and mitigate within our own country. Bottom line, it's going to get worse.
I had to say it because it was the truth.
On March 11th, it became real for the entire country.
That's just when so many people just said, it's time to take this very seriously.
Yo, this is more serious than I thought it was.
March 11th, we knew that the WHO were going to call it a pandemic.
COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic.
The vice president was initially going to do the press conference, but then we were told that the president would be doing the address, and it just kept getting pushed, and it eventually turns into an Oval address that night.
To keep new cases from entering our shores, we will be suspending all travel from Europe to the United States for the next 30 days.
Wow, it's pretty intense.
Jumps up a notch.
Okay, so now, but the issue is, why? Who's declaring a global pandemic and there's 4 people dead in Hong Kong and there's 7 in Shanghai? And you're declaring a global pandemic? It seems like you're overreacting. 2 things are happening at the same time. It's a convergence of 2 events that they had one cover-up planned for. So the cover-up was to cover up an outbreak of bird flu that Obama appears to have launched in 2014. So in 2014, the Pentagon starts monitoring an outbreak of bird flu that's going on in China. And the net of this is, it's a strain called H7N9. Let me show you guys this stuff so you guys don't think I'm insane. All right, so it's a strain called H7N9, and the Pentagon started monitoring this outbreak in China in 2014. And you sort of wonder, well, why in the world would the Pentagon be monitoring an H7N9 virus, an influenza virus? Unless it was a bioweapon. Now, is that a leap of faith to assume that it's a bioweapon? No, because in 2014, the year that Dr. Fauci's pardon goes to, Dr. Fauci did gain a function on that exact virus, H7N9. And gain of function just makes it, 200 times more deadly. So why would you do that in the midst of an outbreak of that very virus, right? So here's the documentation. So in 2014, just 3 weeks after the gain of function pause, Dr. Yoshihiro Kawaoka at the University of Wisconsin-Madison is given a green light and told, don't worry about the pause. You've already been funded. You go ahead with your project. And bullet number 2 here is gain of function on H7N9. The bullet prior to it is to figure out if there's a way to kind of combine Ebola-like qualities with bird flu. So if you weren't convinced these people were crazy, I'm trying to get you maybe another inch closer. All right, so Dr. Kawaoka, see if you can figure out a way to give bird flu Ebola-like properties. And then do your gain of function on the bird flu, on the H7N9. Rock and roll. See what you can do. Next thing you know, lo and behold, we've got a 40% case fatality rate of H7N9 in China. Now, 40% is like Ebola. Okay, so now we've got this same virus from 2014 that the Pentagon has been monitoring, now has a 40% case fatality rate. This is documented. Right? So they're like 40% of the people who are getting this are dying. This is a ruthless version of influenza that isn't just attacking the lungs, it's attacking people's organs. It doesn't need an ACE2 receptor like COVID. And it doesn't need a certain protein called trypsin that acts like a lubricant. It doesn't need that. So it can infect your nervous system. It can infect your circulatory system. It can infect your brain. It can traverse the blood-brain barrier. It is a ruthless virus, killing 40% of the people in China that are getting it. All right, so it's real, it's bad, and that's what was happening in Wuhan. So this whole Wuhan people dying in the streets and all that stuff, that was bird flu. That was bird flu, and the CIA is trying to figure out how we're going to cover this up. So they launch a program. Well, first let me show you that this is what was happening in China. This is the bird flu outbreak in China, documented, by the way, by CNN. It's unreal. It's like sometimes they document stuff, but then nobody jumps on it. So watch this. This is CNN International reporting from Hubei province, where Wuhan is, that there's 21 times more cases of influenza this year than last year, meaning 2019, right before COVID. Meaning if they had 50,000 cases in 2018, they had 1,050,000 cases in 2019. If they had 100,000 cases in 2018, they had 2.1 million cases in 2019. Talk about overloading a hospital system.
Startlingly, these documents reveal there was an enormous spike in influenza cases in Hubei, right when studies have shown the very first known patients were infected with COVID-19. 20 times the number of flu cases compared to the same week the year before. Experts said it could...
That's December 2019, December 2nd through 8th, 2,100%. So if there's 100,000 cases in 2018, there's 2.1 million cases? No wonder they're building hospitals. It's not for COVID. It's for bird flu.
To the same week the year before. Experts said it could have flooded the hospital system with patients sick from flu-like symptoms. But they show flu patients were regularly screened, and many did not have a known flu virus strain.
Dr. Fauci, how are we supposed to hide a bird flu outbreak again? How do we hide a bird flu outbreak? It's not as hard as you think. Okay? You simply don't put this strain, this H7N9, just don't put it in the PCR test. If you don't put it in the PCR test, it comes back negative. PCR test doesn't test for H7N9. It tests for H1, H3. There's no H7N9 in here. So you might be feeling miserable. You got 102.3 fever, you're burning up, you got body aches, you're like, oh my God, and they testing that, no, you're fine. You got nothing. You're like, what? Yeah, no, you don't have any of this stuff. It's not in there. And if it's not in there, you can't find it. So they did a program in 2019 called Crimson Contagion. Crimson Contagion is an exercise to figure out how the hell are we going to cover up this gain-of-function outbreak in China that's going amok. All right, it's clearly going out of control. We're not going to be able to contain this thing. People are going to die. Chickens are going to die because it's a bird flu. And we better figure something out. And so the plan that this thing really is how are we going to blame China? It's our virus, right? We did the gain of function 2014. Pentagon's been monitoring it. It keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And now it's not just killing all the chickens in China. Now it's killing the pigs. 500 million pigs in China die. But Langley comes up with a great idea of just tell everybody it's African swine fever. Well, then shouldn't the FDA be freaking out about African swine fever if it killed 500 million pigs in China? It's the same virus. It's H7N9. It's half the pork production. By the way, this is all Obama's doing. So Obama did this in 2014 to bring China to their knees. Because what happens when the price of pork triples? What happens when the price of eggs triple in China? The people say, she isn't the panda bear. He's not Honey Bear. He's an idiot. We want him gone. And there's unrest. And
it's not even a bad strategy.
It's a great strategy.
Yeah.
If it, it's like Langley's middle name is social unrest.
Yeah.
Right? So if you can triple the price of food by wiping out the food supply and nobody even knows you did it.
Yeah.
Dude, you talk about evil genius, man. These U.S. AMRID guys are, 500 million pigs died. Half the pork production of China. Nobody sees any connection here. It was the deadliest and worst bird flu outbreak in history. Langley comes up with a plan to cover it up with this other virus that this guy Peter Daszak is developing in Wuhan, because Peter Daszak is CIA and EcoHealth. So we take CIA money, we go to China, we get them to help us make viruses and shit. And then when the shit hits the fan, we get to go to Peter Daszak and say, Pete, you've got 40, 50 viruses in development in Wuhan lab, right? With that Dr. Shi lady, the bat chick, right? Yeah. Which one of those would make like a wicked pneumonia and has a bunch of features like bells and whistles that are going to get all the lab rats' attention? He goes, we got this one, SARS-CoV-2. He says, is that from a chicken? It can't be from a bird. He goes, no, it's from a bat. Perfect. You're Langley. You've got a bird flu infecting chickens and eggs, wiping out the poultry population, wiping out egg production. You need to have your Patsy virus, can't have anything to do with chickens. In fact, it shouldn't have anything to do with the food supply. Bats, pangolins, and raccoon dogs. Those aren't in the refrigerated section. How good are these guys? Bats, pangolins, and raccoon dogs. Nobody's thinking food supply. Meanwhile, back at Tyson, 800 people are infected this week, right? Tyson's closing this factory, closing that factory. It's in the food supply, Dale. It's in the chickens, it's in the eggs, and it's in the pork. Nobody wants to talk about the pork because everybody thinks that's African swine fever. Nonsense. That's more cover-up stuff. So this is all going on. They've got a cover-up plan. They're going to cover up the bird flu with the COVID, with the SARS-CoV-2, okay? March 10th, they come to the president and they say, sir, we've got a problem. And he says, yeah, I know, chickens, eggs, I got it. Yeah. So we got another problem. What the hell is that? NORAD would like to brief you. NORAD? What, Santa? Santa's coming early? Not quite, sir. Not quite. NORAD and NASA on the 10th of March most likely showed the president something like this. About 30 to 40 asteroids were converging on Earth And the date of the convergence is April 28th and 29th. So there's a whole bunch of asteroids, which are white dots, that are all coming together around a blue dot. The blue dot is Earth. And the date of the convergence is like the 28th and 29th of April. And I found this, or, like I'm moving the mouse around, like I'm going back, forward, left, right, I'm moving this thing here on April 28th. So the day that I discovered this was the day of the convergence. And I sent an email to Laura Ingraham. And I said, you have got to see this. This is unbelievable. Because I ran the model backwards. Like you can tell it to go backwards. I ran it backwards like 200 years. This has never happened. Nothing like this has ever happened, where 30, 40 asteroids are all converging in like a gravitational vortex like this. And so I sent this to Laura Ingraham. And on the 28th of April, she and I did a Skype session watching the very video you guys are watching right here. And she's at home. I think it was a Saturday or Sunday. I forget which day, but it was a weekend day. We were on Skype. She just downloaded this with WeTransfer. And she's looking at this, and she had a close relationship with Trump at the time. And she's stunned because she didn't know. She wasn't read in. And they were going to leave her to get toasted. And then Tommy starts telling me about Raven Rock. And I start digging into Raven Rock. And it turns out that Raven Rock is only 6 miles from Camp David. Mm-hmm. And that's the underground Pentagon.
It's called the ANMC, the Alternative National Military Command Center. Yeah, it's the Pentagon copy-paste.
Underground Pentagon. Underground city. And apparently they shut the doors to Raven Rock as well. But it's only 6 miles from Camp David. So they can make it appear that everybody's going to Camp David, and they're really going to Raven Rock, right? So that's one thing. So this takes place, and I find this on the 28th. I show it to Laura Ingraham, and then I start backing into everything. I'm like, so wait a second. They showed this to the president on March the 10th. Everything changes overnight. March the 11th, the WHO declares a global pandemic. Now, yes, there's a bird flu outbreak underway, but the COVID story is the cover-up of that. We weren't supposed to have to play that card yet. There's not 10 people dead in Hong Kong. So we're not supposed to have to play this card yet. Trump is telling everybody it goes away in April when the weather gets warm. Everybody calm down. I spoke to Xi. It's going to be fine. He doesn't want to play the COVID card. He's got this crimson contagion. He's got it. He doesn't want to play the card. March 10th, they show him this. And they say, he says to them, well, so what the hell are we supposed to do? And they said, well, sir, we have a plan. We have a national neo plan of what to do when stuff like this happens. And he says, really, you have a plan for this? And I say, yeah, we have a plan. Here's the plan. And the plan says we're supposed to build field hospitals in all the major cities in case there's an impact and people have burns and wounds and whatever. We have to be able to treat the wounded. Okay. So they begin building field hospitals in every major city. And by April 20th, the field hospitals go live. And May 1st, they're decommissioned. 10 days later. 10 days later. The Comfort left New York April 30th. Didn't even wait till May 1st. We got the all clear. April 28th was the convergence, 28th and 29th. And by May 1st, all clear. Put them away. Put the hospitals away. We're done. Field hospitals had nothing to do with COVID. We also put the airplanes away. All right, so we would put the airplanes out in Victorville, California, in like dry storage. We didn't want them getting knocked out of the air. Right? So then it turns out, so President declares national emergency March 13th. 15 days later, all hell breaks loose. All right, so the 10th, they show him this model. The 11th, they declare a global pandemic at the WHO. The 13th, he comes out and says we're going to use all the power of the government, and everybody's coming out of the White House. And you're like, what the hell is going on here? How are there all these people? What is this about? Let's take a look at this. This is the declaration of the pandemic thing.
This is an ABC News special report. Now reporting, George Stephanopoulos.
Good afternoon. Let's go straight to the Rose Garden. President Trump about to hold a news conference on the coronavirus crisis. There you see him, Vice President Mike Pence.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.
You guys remember this?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a clown car. They're still coming out of the office. Look behind. Look in the back. They're still coming out. Look at this.
Beautiful day in the Rose Garden. Appreciate everybody being here. Today, I'd like to provide.
There's not 10 people dead in Hong Kong. Nobody's dead in New York. Nobody's dead in Florida. Not 10 dead in Shanghai. This doesn't seem like overkill.
An update to the American people on several decisive new actions we're taking in our very vigilant effort to combat and ultimately defeat the coronavirus.
The coronavirus? He's like, what? What am I saying this is for? This has nothing to do with the virus. They started building field hospitals. 15 days from that declaration, this is what happens. You start to ask yourself, so wait a second, we were locking down because Hong Kong had how many dead? 7 dead? Shanghai had 4, Beijing had 9, and we're putting the airplanes away? Does that add up? Or is that a paradox? And then on March the 28th, history was made. For the second time since the birth of Jesus, a meteor hit the earth. A 1,000 buildings have the roofs blown off. It's the second impact of this magnitude since the birth of Jesus. The last one was 1,100 years ago in Canada in the forest, so nobody witnessed it. This is in a village in Akure, Nigeria, and it happened 15 days after the president announces a national emergency. This is when they started taking everything seriously. And this is when the field hospital deployment went into high gear, because this was an unexpected impact. We weren't expecting that. So this happens in Akure, March 28th, and the field hospital construction teams go into high gear. Army Corps of Engineers, and a call-up of the National Guard that is the largest National Guard call-up since D-Day. And they deploy field hospitals across the country, everywhere.
I didn't know that.
And around the world. What was that, Tommy?
I didn't know that factoid.
Oh, yeah. So they start deploying the field hospitals all over the place to be ready April 20th, and they're decommissioned May 1st. They stand for 10 days. The impact in Akure, Nigeria is covered up. A professor from the local university goes there. They take the drone, they measure it, they do all the orthomosaic stuff. They figure out everything, the size, the depth, the diameter. And he says, yeah, this is absolutely a meteor crater. You got water oozing from the sides. You got shocked quartz, all the classic things you would see in a meteor crater. And CNN doesn't send Christiane Amanpour to Akure, Nigeria. This is the first meteor crater formed on Earth in 1,100 years. The one before that was 3,500 years ago in Kali, Estonia. These are rare events. In human terms, I mean, in geological terms, it just looks like bing, 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 bing. It looks like the moon getting hit. But for people, these things don't happen that often of this magnitude. That's 60 meters across, 185 feet, almost 190 feet across. That's the estimate on TNT tonnage is 80 to 100 tons of TNT to create, pounds of TNT, 40 to 50 tons. So 40 to 50 tons of TNT to create that. Well, that's more than 2 containers. So that's more than an 18-wheel truck. So you'd need 2 18-wheel trucks minimum with full containers loaded with TNT to create a crater that size, which is why the cover-up story that it was a truck with explosives, what truck was carrying 80,000 pounds of TNT through Akure, Nigeria, through a rural farmland? Trucks can't pull 80,000 pounds. That's beyond, we don't do that. So that's why it's not a truck, it's a meteor crater. They cover it up because there's 30 more coming in 4 weeks.
But they said it was a truck bomb?
So the cover-up story from the local guys was there was a truck driver and he was driving a truck and the truck caught fire and the truck. It's 80 tons or 80,000 pounds worth of TNT to create a crater. That's
40 tons,
yeah. So that's not what that is. So this happens. They've got to cover up that story. So nobody knows about Akure, Nigeria. Right? You never saw photos of this crater. How is this not on the cover of Newsweek? The last one's 1,100 years ago in the forests of Canada. Whitecourt, Canada. If you look up Whitecourt, Canada, meteor impact, you guys will find that in Wikipedia. So 1,100 years ago is the last one of this magnitude. There's been a couple that are smaller, like 10 feet across, 12 feet across crater in the mud, like in Chile and stuff, but that's not the same thing. I mean, this blew the roofs off of 1,000 buildings. And we got 30 more coming in 4 weeks. Let me play a video that I then found recently from NASA, where NASA let the cat out of the bag. So NASA has a sort of a way of telling like white lies in that they'll tell you part of the story, but not the whole story. So NASA confirms that April 28th, 29th is a near-Earth event, but they only talk about one of the asteroids. They don't tell you that there's 30 or 40 of them. Let me play this video for you guys. This is from NASA, produced by them, showing you what was happening April 28th, 29th.
The night I laid my eyes on you, felt everything around me move, got nervous when you looked my way, but you knew all the words to say, then your love slowly moved right in, all this time, oh my love, where you been? Mesmerizing every way.
it is. Armageddon's next date with Earth and its creatures is April 29th, 2020. They let the cat out of the bag. Now, what they don't tell you is that there's 30 more in addition to the one they're comping to. So they tell you about one of them, and the one they tell you about is 4 million miles out. That's not the one I'm worried about. I'm worried about all the ones that are closer than the moon. And they don't mention those. And once again, it works. It's like they use such simple techniques, and they work. And nobody, it's like everybody's like, oh, in fact, very few people even know this. Did anybody watching this right now know that we had an Armageddon warning on April 29th, 2020? And that there was an Armageddon warning a month earlier, it said, right? It said the last time we had an Armageddon warning was last month, right? Here you go. Last time there was last month. Tommy, I'm not getting my Armageddon warnings. I thought I subscribed, but they're not coming through. Why isn't David Muir and Anderson Cooper and Sean Hannity letting us know, hey guys, we got an Armageddon warning for next Wednesday. Don't look up. So Trump says, all right, well, let's just tell everybody we're building the field hospitals for the virus. It's not for COVID. Don't bring anybody here for COVID. This is if the hospital system is overflowing, we'll use this as backup. And everybody, okay, that's a good enough. I think people are taking too many SSRIs. I think everybody's just become okay, that sounds like that's a good plan. And nobody's questioning anything anymore. It's like, did critical thinking die as Prozac, Wellbutrin, and Zoloft took off? I think so. I don't think anybody's thinking critically anymore. I think we have to titrate back on the Wellbutrin and the Paxil and the Zoloft. And people need to start asking some tough questions. We built field hospitals when there's 4 people dead in Hong Kong. On January 13th, the president ordered vaccines from Moderna. There's only one guy dead on Earth. Those vaccines weren't for COVID. They were for the bird flu outbreak. But that's a gain of function thing from Obama. As much as Trump hates Obama, he can't go to the podium and say, hey, my predecessor started a bio war with China with this gain of function. He can't do that. The whole Joint Chiefs are going to say, sir, that's admitting to bio warfare. You can't do that. It's like, so you telling me I've got to cover up what the Kenyan did? I got to cover for the Kenyan. They're like, yeah, basically, yes, sir. So that's his predicament. He finds himself not able to tell the public the truth because the Joint Chiefs are like, sir, you can't tell people we did this. Right? The Pentagon's been monitoring this thing for 10 years now, since 2014, 11 years. They know full well what's going on. To me, the interesting part must be when they briefed Tulsi Gabbard, Ratcliffe on, hey guys, listen, this whole COVID thing is, it's kind of, that was our virus. Dale, we killed 7 million people with our virus from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. That's Holocaust level deaths. It wasn't China. China wasn't lying. We funded them to make the SARS-CoV-2 virus so that we'd have a library of patsies to pick from one day. A virus that has both CGG, the furin cleavage site, and the GP120 sequence from HIV? That's like the Rattler lore at Cabela's that has the little BBs in it and the hologram and the little whistler, right? So that it's like it's got to get the fish's attention somehow. Well, we got GP120 and CGG. It's the perfect patsy. Perfect. The lab rats haven't stopped talking about it yet. Did it get its thing from here? Did it come from the lab? Did it come from the market? What about the fish? What about the pigs? What about the raccoon dog? Dude, it's the perfect patsy. It's a red herring. It has nothing to do with what happened. It's all about Dr. Kawaoka, Obama, Fauci. They launched a biowar against China and devastated the food supply. And for some reason thought it would stay constrained to China. Next thing you know, in, summer 2019, Australia has 4 times more people die from influenza than the year before. And that's when we knew it's on. It's beyond China now. By January 2020, Italy had 3 million cases of influenza in Italy. And then it comes to New York. And the tip-off in New York was that in New York, the case fatality rate was 31%. And COVID is 1%. And we saw 40% in China. So if the case fatality rate that we see in New York is 31%, well, that's a hell of a lot closer to 40% than 1%. So if you've got 100,000 cases in New York and 31% of those people die, that's not COVID. That's a bioweapon. You tell me there's a virus that 31% of the people who got it died in New York? And we're talking about 100,000 people now. We're not talking about 1,600 people. So when you talk about 1,600 people, the statistical significance and stuff is kind of sketchy. When you get to 100,000 cases, now we have statistical significance. And we had a 31% case fatality rate in New York and New Jersey. Well, how the hell's that happen? That's not COVID. COVID's 1%. So the data shows us that the outbreak that hit New York, New Jersey, starts spreading around the country wasn't SARS-CoV-2. It was this bird flu. And that's what he orders the vaccines for. And the asteroid problem, by the way, nothing hits April 28th. So we have the impact March 28th in Akure. And then April 28th, everybody's all puckered up. Raven Rock, right? Cheyenne Mountain, everybody's like waiting, and nothing happens. And they fly by. May 1st, we get the all clear. They start putting all the hospital, everything is decommissioned May 1st. May 5th, another one flies by real close that we didn't see. And Trump came out to Arizona, I believe, to thank the guys at the observatory. There's an observatory in Arizona called the Lemon Observatory that was picking up all these things. Trump flies out there to say he's meeting with Honeywell for masks. And I'm like, no, he's going to the observatory to talk to these guys and say, hey, thank you for what you guys just did. They were tracking all these things. And I was like, why is he going to Honeywell? There's a mask factory. The hell kind of trip is that? He went out to the observatory because, again, all these things are coming in and I'm looking at all this stuff and it kept saying Lemon Observatory, Lemon Observatory. You can look this up, Tommy. Lemmon, I think. It's not like regular lemon. It's Lemmon. The Lemon Observatory, I think it's in Tucson, Arizona. And this is where they were picking up a lot of these asteroids. And I think Trump's trip was like November 4th or 5th. And on that day, they pick up another asteroid that just skimmed the Earth, like 4,000 miles, 7,000 miles from the surface, like really close, closer than our satellites. So it was a close shave, man. The whole thing was a close shave. We got very lucky. And then they just put them all away and forget the asteroid problem, back to bird flu. And so the rest of 2020, they're just dealing with this bird flu thing. And then they bring out the vaccines and tell everybody the vaccines are for COVID. The Chinese virus. Vaccines for bird flu. 8, 7, and 9. So the secrets these guys keep are intense, man. Intense. It's got to weigh on you. And you wonder why these guys have such gray hair. You know, it looks like Obama aged 25 years and 8. The secrets these guys have to keep, it's just wild. And we haven't gotten to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and the aliens yet. I mean, you know, that's the big kahuna, right? That's the cover-up of cover-ups, right? And we're talking about all this shit, and people, you know, a bunch of people think we sound crazy. Once you go into the aliens and Wright-Patterson, you know, there's no turning back, right? And I got tons of stuff on that too. You know, when did he announce Space Force?
2017?
December 20th, 2019.
19, okay.
What happened the day before? Do you know this? Guys, you got to see this. All right, so let's show the audience this, and this will be fodder for the next time we get together. We'll dig into these alien things, because it's obviously somewhat connected. But the formation of Space Force.
The first official COVID case in the U.S. was December 12th, 2019, and I know that because that's the day I started my podcast. Retroactively, that's the first official case.
But it wasn't discovered in China until January 9th. Yeah. All right, so let me see if I can find my Space Force video for you. Here we go. Space Force was founded why? Okay. So let's take a look at this together, and I think you guys are going to enjoy this. And the next time we get together, Dale, we'll get into the details on this thing.
Very importantly, I'm hereby directing the Department of Defense and Pentagon to immediately begin the process necessary to establish a Space Force as the 6th branch of the armed forces. That's a big statement.
The day before.
To establish a Space Force as the 6th branch of the armed forces. That's a big statement.
This is Summerlin, Nevada, right near the Red Rock Canyon. There's like a northern and a southern entrance exit to Red Rock. This is the northern part up by Summerlin. This is filmed with a color night vision camera, and the gentleman who filmed it said this was absolutely not visible to the naked eye. So if he moves his eye away from the camera, he can't see this at all. This is only visible on the camera. This was filmed by the Chilean Navy, naval pilot. This footage was edited out by Fox News. They showed the beginning. They didn't show this part. So, when you see some of the evidence that's out there that's not been widely circulated, it starts to become apparent that, they've been covering up quite a bit of this stuff for quite some time. And, I thought that was compelling footage. And the guy who's been filming it has been filming for quite some time. His name is Steve Barone. You guys can find him on YouTube. He posts on YouTube, Steve Barone. He lives in Summerlin, and he's got a night vision color camera, goes up on the roof and films quite a bit of interesting stuff. But I thought that footage was real compelling, and it was the day before and 9 days before the declaration of Space Force. So I figured, that's a coincidence, or it's part of the reason why. Hard to say, but certainly I thought it was interesting.
That will definitely be the next show. Yeah, no, that's the apex of all conspiracies is
absolutely,
and not for the reason that they've kind of fed through narrative over the last 80 years, which I get from a power point of view. If you want to retain your power, you'd come up with a horseshit reasoning and say the people can't handle it. Religion would fall apart. Some would, most wouldn't. I don't think. The real
there's more to it.
The big thing is how the fuck did they get here? And that either implies if it's through traditional means, meaning, subluminal, then it requires an engine and a power source that is, no pun intended, out of this world. Or it got here through a mode that we have not yet discovered through our laws of physics that we have created.
Which is most likely. I think that's most likely.
But they're both options are equally wild. You either got here sublight speed, which means you have some hyperdense fuel source because you have to bring that fuel with you, or there's quantum entanglement, what is it, weird strange interaction, whatever it is. They're both completely paradigm changing in terms of our projection. You can have
that's
that.
Why it's wild.
Well,
and then the question is something being held over our leaders? Right. Yeah. So is there a reason that they can't disclose it? Because if they disclose it, something even worse would happen.
I think what it is to me, I always just look at what would I do? The very first thing if I was in control, if I was at the head of the fucking Pentagon and I learned about this and everything and every classified, the very first thing you look at this is this is instantaneous strike. This nullifies mutual assured destruction. If you can instantaneously strike everything, I know Russia's got the dead hand, but just for this thought experiment, you've outsmarted the Cold War. You can now wipe everyone out. So why couldn't the president announce it? Wouldn't you want to announce it and say we have first strike capability? The only reason I could conclude that you wouldn't say that, because like Dr. Strangelove, the entire purpose of a doomsday weapon is that everyone knows you have it. It does no good keeping it secret. The only reason we would not announce it, would be because it's not that we built it, we're reverse engineering it, and we still haven't figured it out yet. So we've got this lottery ticket. We're trying to scratch it off. We don't want anyone else to know we have it.
That's the Bob Lazar, take Bob Lazar and run the Bob Lazar story through the thing for 40 years. And there's probably guys crashing these things outside of Nellis, every 3 weeks. They run into a rock with
drunk Air Force.
Right, they suck at flying. It's like in Independence Day, right? When they first start flying and they're banging into everything. I'm sure that's what it's like up at Nellis. This guy, Steve Barone, is filming all kinds of strange stuff right outside of Nellis, almost on a weekly basis. He's churning out stuff. I mean, you go to his YouTube channel, it's wild how much he's filmed. And then you see footage like this, and it's like, man, these are not helicopters. I know helicopters, and these are not helicopters. So there's a lot to the story. And then we get to the whole Wright-Patterson twist and what's going on up at Wright-Patterson. I think that's where the goods are. I think the other goods are at Fort Knox. There's no gold in Fort Knox. That's where we keep the stinky stuff, man. There's no gold in there. How much gold? We don't have that much gold. We have $120 billion worth of gold. This is nothing. Our gold reserves are ridiculous. It's silly.
Well, I would say that's not even unrelated. It was, the dollar's backed by gold. The dollar's backed by military force.
Damn straight.
And that goes back to, well, what would be the bee's knees, the absolute crown jewel, would be some faster than light, teleportation, quantum entanglement, fucking alien technology. And it's interesting because it's not something like the Manhattan Project or stealth or whatever, to where you're building this thing and you're keeping it secret. It's such a fascinating twist because you haven't quite figured it out yet, but you don't want anyone else to know. So it's like you're robbing a bank, but you haven't got the safe open yet. But you don't want anyone else coming in and having it. So I've got Dale and his buddies doing, Delta Perimeter while I'm trying to fucking figure out the safe. So it's a weird thing.
Groom Lake. I mean, Groom Lake is to keep the prying eyes away from us.
Absolutely, it is. So, yeah, I mean, that's what I think it is. I think it's both. I think we've got some shit that we're trying to reverse engineer, and I think we've probably invented some crazy shit. I'll give us some credit. We've probably got some wild shit. I
think we're on the tour stop. I think every Christmas we're visited, and that's where the Santa Claus thing comes from.
And we could for the
Santa
next
Claus. Is that Santa Claus? Yeah, that's Santa Claus, kids. Santa Claus. That's the guys from Ursula Major or something. They're stopping by every Christmas because we're on the tour. They stop by all the planets that have basic life forms, just like we like to go to Papua New Guinea and look at all the people in the huts and laugh at them as they go spearfishing. They're laughing at us as we're still flying through the atmosphere using fossil fuels. And they laugh at us in the way that we use magnets. Mm-hmm. Like, so wait a second, you guys take electricity to spin the magnet to turn the propeller? Like morons, the magnets are the energy. Magnets produce kinetic force ad infinitum with no batteries. Am I wrong? No. Magnets produce kinetic force ad infinitum with no energy added. And we add energy to spin them around to turn a propeller. Okay, so we are being laughed at, I believe, by other civilizations as we figure out how to modulate gravity. We know how to do amplitude modulation. We know how to do frequency modulation on electromagnetic waves. We haven't yet figured out how to do that on gravitational waves. We know gravity moves in waves now, finally. Took us long enough. All right, now that we know it moves in waves, who is going to figure out how to modulate gravitational waves? If you can turn a dial, like I do in my FM radio, and I got an amplitude modulation and I got a frequency modulation, if I can do that with gravity, I can make your Humvee come right off the ground. I can make that thing fly. Just give me that knob. I need that gravity modulation knob, and we're going to turn that, and the thing's just going, it's going to come right off the ground. And I think that's what Bob Lazar was screwing around with 40 years ago, and they're still trying to figure out smooth surface, how do you fly this thing? Where do you touch? I don't know, man. It's a fascinating story. It is the biggest cover-up of all time. And when you see how much they're willing to invest in these stupid-ass cover-ups, the Vegas shooting, the COVID, the Butler, and how much they're willing to invest in this with the 60,000, the William Arkin article about there's an army of 60,000 disinformation people working for the Pentagon.
Yeah.
So they're billions of dollars to throw false narratives.
Signature reduction agency.
At the stupid stuff. I mean, none of this measures up to, anti-gravitational Wright-Patterson. Nothing comes close to aliens. Nothing. And they're willing to invest all this in covering all this other stuff up. September 11th, the Saudis. There's no limit to what they will go through to cover up this alien stuff. And no president will touch it. No president will touch it.
Two things that we'll dovetail into the next episode, and then we'll wrap it up is you can say number one. I forgot. Dale actually has an Area 51 story. Dale, you were in Nevada, the test site or groom, whatever the fuck, and you said it on here. It's not going to get me healed. You said it on the show before about you were doing security, some contractor, and y'all saw some fucking light, hovering above something. You said it was like like a spark off a grinding wheel. It just went over the horizon.
Yeah,
And
no, actually what it was, so we were in vehicles that night, and the desert was flat as you could see in every direction except for in front of us was a butte. And I don't know how high it was. Maybe I'm just going to guess and say 400 or 500 meters or 500 feet high. And now we got stopped for a second. We drove into an area we weren't supposed to go into because the wire was down. So we ended up driving into it. We're trying to reassess. Okay, check our dosimeters. And then as I'm standing there, I look over towards that butte, the only butte out there. I mean, you can look for miles in every direction. It's just flat, except for this one butte. And all of a sudden, behind it comes this big bright light. It just comes straight up and it hovers above the butte. And it hovered there for maybe 15 seconds, 20 seconds. And it was a really big bright light. It had no strobes on it, no red and greens. It was not a helicopter. It was not a machine. You couldn't hear anything. It was just very quiet. Hovered, and then sank back down behind the butte. And we commenced to drive. We went all the way around this damn thing looking, and nowhere was it. We didn't see anything. There was nothing there. And
How
we never
far were you
watched.
from the runways? How far were you from like the main Groom Lake runway? How far out were you guys?
Uh,
Perimeter, like 8 miles, 10 miles out?
at least we were quite a ways
Where-
away from everything. We were way in the middle of nowhere.
North of the main installation, or
I don't remember. I
Nevada
actually don't
test site's
remember.
also the biggest test site in the world. So
it's huge.
yeah.
Oh my God, yeah. That place is
Yep.
huge. Yeah.
So I don't remember exactly where we were located, but I do remember seeing that, and I was just eager to see when we get around this thing, what was that? And there was
There's nothing
nothing
there.
there.
Did it
Nothing.
shimmer? Did it have that shimmering quality like what we saw in the video where
It looked like a parachute flare that we use in the military, right? So you launch a parachute flare out of an artillery piece or mortar,
Huh?
and it opens up and it comes down on a
lights
parachute.
up? Yeah, lights up the yeah.
Right. But that was it. It was just hovering. It wasn't sinking. It was just hovering, and then all of a sudden it just went down on its own behind it, and that was it. Never saw it fly off or do anything from there. No engine sounds, no strobe lights, anything that would indicate it was some type of a man-made aerial vehicle. Nothing. And it was big, a big bright light. It wasn't like a little one. It was a big bright light.
How long were you stationed out there? How long were you working out the area?
We were
51?
only out there for a few days, but that was the that was the one thing I do remember, and that's my one UFO story that I have. It's like I feel like I actually saw an unidentified flying object, which was nothing man-made. Is the way I can describe it. It's a
Very
big
cool.
ass bright light. Yeah,
I'm
and
still looking. I'm still looking for my first one. I haven't seen one yet, but I'm still looking. I'm eager. I'm eager.
I was gonna say, so that is, and I'll look it up. Trump had a comment, I don't know, a couple weeks ago. I don't think even a full month ago. But I don't know where it is. I don't want to look at it, April 18th, 2025. Okay. Yeah, Trump says that the US has tech that, quote, and this is verbatim, manipulates space and time. I don't know if you saw that, but like
That's
that kind of
pretty.
went under the radar. But he's
That's pretty bold.
talking
Yeah.
about like the new fighter jet, the F-47, and but then it just kind of slides in there in the middle. He's going on and on. He's just like Trump, just meandering.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then he says the U.S. has technology. We can now manipulate space and time, or the fabric of space and time. And then he kept going
actually,
on about.
there's actually I saw some other articles on that recently too. It just came out where they've been able to do all kinds of different things like teletransport, light rays, bend space and time. Time is not linear like we think it is. So this is the other thing that's kind of fascinating. The last, I'd say 3 years. I mean, 2 years ago, most of us never heard of AI. What the hell is AI? All of a sudden, now it's ubiquitous. Everybody's got AI. It's like, whoa, and it's pretty damn good, right? It's pretty scary, but it's moving so fast. And then there's all these other developments, like space time, all these things, that are popping up. It's like rapid all of a sudden. It's not like a slow progress over time. We discover something new. It's like we're discovering a lot of things all at once. Like, for example, there's a guy, a doctor that I follow quite a bit, and he made mention that if you're still alive in 5 years from now, there's a pretty good chance you can live to be 120, 150 years. Why? Because the advancement of AI and medical knowledge is moving so fast, right? And it's not just, I mean, it's everything. And so, what kickstarted that? It seems like suddenly we went from a slow crawl to a sprint within a couple of years, right? It makes you wonder what in the hell just happened
Well,
that allowed all that, right? That's what I'm curious about as well. And if you remember during COVID, I distinctly remember during COVID several times there came out, some news reports came out. Oh yeah, the U.S. government, they're going to release some information about UFOs, and they kept saying that, and then they drop a little thing, a little nugget here, a little nugget there. And what I think they were doing, and I think they're still doing it, I think what they're trying to do is condition us to the idea,
slow walk it.
yeah, that one day, Apollo, look, guys, here it is. There's the aliens, right? But I also think the reason they're not coming out and telling us, I do believe they exist. Why not? I mean, if you think about it, we know of over 700 trillion galaxies, right, in the
It's
universe. That's what
insane.
we
Yeah, it's
know,
crazy.
right?
Absolutely.
So
They're
how
everywhere.
would, yeah, how can we believe that we're not the only living creatures
Can't.
in that? You can't, right? So there's got obviously more. Moreover, um, you know, and so I think the reason they're not coming out with it, there's all kinds of reasons, right? Maybe you're right. Maybe we've discovered some type of high-speed technology from the aliens that we could wipe out all our enemies, right? But honestly, why would we do that? Because at that point, you know, I don't see Russia or China as our enemies anymore. I think we should all be united because we got a bigger problem, and it's coming from out there, right? And
No
so I
doubt.
don't think we would be interested in killing off our enemies. I think we want to come together on this one, right? Until we figure out what this external entity is out there. Is it a threat to all of us? I don't think that's really the agenda. What I believe it is if they come out, if the government comes out and they go, okay, surprise, guys, yes, we have aliens. There's aliens out there. Here's what I think would happen, right? Because if you think about religion, so for example, the Bible is supposed to be without error, right? God's all knowing, all powerful, without error, right? And so even though the Bible is a man-made book, the argument is in Christianity is God made humans, he made all life on earth, and that's all there exists. If suddenly we come along and go, oh no, 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 there's Martians, there's Venetians, and there's other space creatures, and that would kind of blow the lid off, I think religion a little bit, because how do you explain that? If God's all knowing, all powerful, and the book is without error, and his word is without error, and he said there's no other life, then all of a sudden their life shows up. That could have some implications, globally on a lot of religions, but moreover, what keeps most people within the left and right limits in life, right? Keeps them morally and ethically going in a straight direction, with some exceptions. It's because they're afraid of, they don't want to be sinful and go to hell. So they want to live this life within these rules. By the way, these rules were written by other men in the Bible, and so everybody adheres to these rules. And suddenly, if you go, "Fuck, there was no God. This was all bullshit. There's aliens out here." What would that do to the average person? You're like, well, I am believing this bullshit and more of this stuff about being righteous and moral and blah 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 blah. I think you would see just people would just start doing what the hell they want. It's like, why? There's no
Mhm.
consequence. I'm not going to heaven or hell, right? All this shit that kept me in check. And so if I dunce my neighbor because he pissed me off, there's probably no consequences. If I have to answer to anybody, it might be an alien at this point. So I think that's part of the reason is that's how they control society, control people, is through
Belief
fear, right?
systems. Yeah, well,
Yeah,
belief
right.
systems. You've got belief
Exactly.
systems, right? In different countries have different belief systems. So in India, they have theirs, right? So as we go around the world, we see these different belief systems, and those belief systems would certainly be challenged by 10-foot gray dudes walking around with long fingers. This is all of a sudden, that's game changing. What's interesting though is that the Vatican has been a major player in astronomy.
Mm-hmm.
So their science department is like state of the art. Like they're like teamed up with Stanford and stuff. Like they are high end in the astronomy world. So it's not like they're shying away from it. I wonder if the Vatican is trying to figure out if and when, how would we integrate this into our belief system? How would we explain it? How would we cope with this? And you kind of have to tip your hat to them that they're even in the game, right? They could be going, pshaw, telescopes are for assholes like Galileo. We don't believe in telescopes, but that's not what they're doing. So you kind of have to hand it to them. I mean, they gave Galileo a wrath of shit. They almost burned the guy at the stake for his Jupiter observations, right? So, and then they finally said, it looks like he was right. Let's form our own astronomy department. And it's heavy duty. Like they've got their own telescopes. Like there's a Vatican observatory and all this stuff. I don't know how they're going to integrate this in. I don't know. It's a great question for the new Pope. It's probably the question I would ask him if I could have coffee with the guy. If in fact we discover that we are not alone, how do you communicate this to your followers? I mean, what do you do? As far as the heaven and hell stuff, I'm Lutheran. So I come from a whole group of people that don't believe in that. And yet we don't run around killing everybody, right? Well, for the most part, right? There's a couple of us that are pretty badass. But, we don't believe in heaven and hell, but, we don't just run around chopping everybody's heads off. So there's a degree of it, but there's also people who don't necessarily have that as their belief system to keep them on the straight and narrow, right? I'm still good to people, even though I don't think I'm going to go to hell for the bad things I've done, right? So.
Yeah, the thing about the Vatican too, man. I mean, I haven't seen it, but what I understand is there's quite, there's a lot of stuff underneath the Vatican that's been buried under there. It's basically, no one can see it. I mean, there's stuff they're hiding down there apparently that's related to possibly aliens.
I'm sure.
When you look at all the artifacts, man, around the world, you see a lot of similarities, like sculptures and drawings of what looks like aliens and people wearing spacesuits.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stuff out there that needs answers and nobody can answer it, the frequencies, right? So when you look at churches and various you look at all the what's the words I'm looking for? The designs and things like that that are like on the churches and spires and the ceilings. All the designs are actually rooted in frequency, and so everything is energy. So earlier you made a comment about, talking about gravitational forces and things like that, magnetic, levitation. And one of the theories is that somehow the Egyptians had the knowledge, probably got it from some alien, how to use gravity and the magnetic energy to actually move those big ass rocks and stack them up. We see that all around the planet. We also know that most of the pyramids are somehow, in one way or another, in alignment with each other, and all of them also emit some type of a frequency. In Mexico, in fact. I was bodyguard for a very wealthy billionaire. And we were down there, him and his wife and I. And one day they're like, "Hey, we want to go to look at the pyramids." Like, "Oh, we're going to Egypt?" No, no, we're here in Mexico. I didn't even know Mexico had pyramids. And so we go there, and yeah, they got big ass pyramids there. And so I'm standing at the base of the pyramid with the old man, while his wife goes climbing to the top of this thing, and he's standing smoking a cigarette. He goes, "Right here, beneath where we're standing," he goes, several meters below us, he goes, "There is a bed of porcelain that you can only find in Peru." And it was brought up here, and it's about the size of a soccer field. And I go, "Well, why would that be there?" And so there's a mystery behind it, but I thought about it. It's like, what do you use porcelain for? Insulators, right? right? So, and now we're thinking frequencies, insulators. And so the theory is maybe these pyramids are actually some type of beacons, that they used to use to, for, I don't know, navigation purposes, like lighthouses. I don't know, man. There's so many things that are unanswered, and there's so many questions that it makes me believe that there's got to be there's only one answer, man. We're not that goddamn we weren't that smart that long ago. We're just not, right? So, the argument is, Earth was created 6,000 years ago in the Bible. But when you look at science and forensics and anthropology and all those things, the first humans were starting to evolve about 250 million years ago, and so in the last 100,000 years is when we kind of became who we are today, but we're still kind of mixed up with Neanderthals and a few others. But
No doubt.
it's like, so how does all this is not adding up? And then, talking about the Cardinal or the Vatican again, there were certain books that were not included in the Bible. They were intentionally left, right? And they reveal some things that's like, okay, this makes no freaking sense. The continuity of this book, if you add that in, it would just completely disrupt the continuity. It doesn't make any sense. So they just took it out conveniently and said, no, we don't want to talk about that. Uh, there's a lot of mysteries out there, man. It's not bullshit. It's not some conspiracy theories. When people really stop and start studying this stuff and start thinking about, like, the word matrix. Where does the word matrix come from? It comes out of the Bible, right? So that's interesting, right? So the matrix, right? So there's so much. If you pay attention and you really look closely and you read and you start thinking, you go, man, there's something's not adding up here, man. And I think that at the end of the day, do we even really exist? Are we just consciousness, experience the human condition? Do we really exist? Or, are we are we really a matrix? Are we just a computer simulation? And again, science is is evolving so fast. It's actually now starting to go, maybe we really don't really, what's called a dual slit,
Double slit
what do you call
experiment.
it? Dual slit test, right? Where they shoot photons.
You guys there? Just froze up. It's just froze.
I don't know what happened there.
Dale's back. Yeah, it froze up. John's still frozen.
Yeah.
Oh, there he goes.
Yeah, I was rambling away about,
No. I think that's on my end. It all just crashed. He's coming back.
Yeah, but
I'm
anyways,
back.
more to talk.
I'm back.
I want to know more aliens, man. That's, if that's what I want to know. To me, if we find out there's aliens, that just explains our being. Why are we here? How do we get here? That explains everything. Because nothing else explain.
That video of the alien thing with the cloud of stuff coming out of it.
Is, and kill many people, and do the shit that we fucking have done. No, not we, they have done and keep doing. That makes no goddamn sense, man. And I'm ashamed, man, in a lot of ways that, we're involved in bullshit like this, the whole COVID crap, I look at how many lives that's actually destroyed. Someone needs to be held accountable for that. I lost a big chunk of my business here because of this bullshit lie, and that's all it is a lie, and they know it. I remember when it started. I looked at the numbers globally, supposedly how many people died, and then I looked at, how many people are on the planet. I did the math, and what I finally came up with was, COVID had a survivability rate of 99.9978%. I'm like, why the freak would I take a vaccine for that? It did, and I'm the one guy, I'm not the smartest guy around, but, I did the math and go, yeah, this is not making any sense, right? Here's another thing that, that got my attention. So I won't mention any names here, but some of my friends, um, they all basically made appointments to go to the local clinic to get a COVID test, a PCR test to see if they have COVID. So all 5 of them canceled it because they had something else to go do. A week later, they all got letters from the clinic going, well, sorry to inform you, but you've got COVID and you need to come down for your vaccine. It's like, I didn't even take the test. How did they get the damn letter, right? So there's a lot of weird shit going on out there. And it's basically people exploiting this pandemic, what I call the scandemic. And then why did we even have a scandemic? It's because we've got evil people out there they don't value life, they don't value freedom, they don't value nothing but power, and they have no problem with walking over other people and destroying their lives just a bit, to enrich themselves. You know, there's some very bad people, man, and they're all around us, unfortunately, and it's not over. They're sitting in their back room right now going, okay, well, what are we going to fuck them with next, right? To get some more power.
Yeah.
There's more coming. There's more coming.
No doubt. No doubt.
Man.
Well, that's the asteroid story, though, as far as how that came to be and all this COVID stuff. And, they used COVID as the cover up for the field hospitals, and they put all the airplanes away because they didn't want to get knocked out of the sky by asteroids and stuff. So, and then May 1st, what asteroids?
You just eat it.
Yeah.
Old news. It's like, forget it. It's over. It's gone. It's done. And the next one, by the way, is April 13th, 2029. April 13th, 2029, we have Apophis, and that doesn't look good. That doesn't look good. So, but gentlemen, I got to run. I know Tommy's got a hard stop in a couple minutes. Tommy's got another show.
I got to start another show. So I
think it's 4 a.m. where Dale is, so Dale's got to get some sleep.
Dale's a machine. Dale doesn't need sleep.
Dale's got to get some rest. Thank you, Dale. This was awesome. Tommy, thank you so much.
Yeah, both of you guys, thank you so much. Everybody listening, please go in the description. Please go follow Dale on Instagram and his coaching. And you can follow John on Twitter, his YouTube, his Patreon, his Subscribestar. This will be up tomorrow, so I'll send it to both of you. And then we will absolutely do another one on aliens, Roswell, and Patterson, Red Patterson. So, but for now, gentlemen, thank you both so much for your time. Dale, happy birthday. And
happy birthday, Dale.
And
thank you.
Yes, sir. Guys, guys, thank you so much for your time, both of you. Thank you for watching.